be in office, she's a mother, don't vote for her, she's a mother. I mean, awful things. Well, she just became a mother in Congress, and they put in a bill for proxy voting. Of course, the speaker said you can't pass it. She did a motion to discharge, which gets around the speaker and moves it to the floor. She just got the votes this morning to bring it to the floor. First of all, I want to thank the UN caucus for inviting me and for really putting a focus on this important issue. And it's an honor to be at the United Nations to help celebrate one of the most productive events for women in the 20th century. I first want to thank the UN for its leadership on women's rights, gender equality, through various programs such as the UN Women, UNFPA, and other UN agencies. And I'm deeply grateful for the UN General Assembly for its strong resolutions helping women and girls, and especially to the NGO community. I was honored to be the lead of the Democratic delegation going to the 1995 Beijing conference in Beijing, which turned out to be the most consequential UN conference for women ever. And it remains one of the most comprehensive and visionary roadmaps to accelerate the long march to equality for women. Since then, we have been implementing this platform for action. Enrollment of girls in education worldwide is up. Violence against women is now a crime, even in the United States. Sexual harassment and gender discrimination in the workplace are now illegal. I can remember when discrimination was part of the job. You couldn't do anything about it. There was no laws to protect you. Women's participation in the labor force and political leadership has increased. We're now a third of Congress, thank God. And women have greater access to contraception and to reproductive health services. But I can say you can try telling this or selling this or talking about it to certain women, such as women of Afghanistan, Iran, or South Sudan, and you can see that progress has not come and is very, very uneven. And even in America, I would say that we are confronting a backlash. And we're going backwards. We're going backwards fast. And we've got to get together with the League of Women Voters I see here, and the ERA Coalition, Bettina, and others. We have to get together fast to combat these terrible decisions that are really serious, troubling to all of us. The Dobbs decision overturned 50 years of precedent that gave women the right to choose. And I would say that if they can take away the woman's right to choose, they can take away any right. And the only way, in my opinion, that we can protect ourselves is to get women firmly, concretely in the Constitution. We know that it's been ratified, but we need it recognized and in the Constitution where we can implement it to help and save women. I can tell you that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime that our daughters would have fewer rights than we had at their age, but they do. And I also know that what has happened to abortion and to abortion rights could happen to any right for them going forward. I started working on the Equal Rights Amendment when I was in college, and today I'm in 70s. I haven't gone very far in my life. I'm still working on the Equal Rights Amendment. And we all need to work together so that future generations of women will not face the discrimination that I faced in my lifetime, and I'm sure many of you faced in your lifetime. I want to say that the excuse that is given by ERA opponents, and I used to hold ERA hearings, just make it happen, like making this meeting happen. But I did, when I was chair, both committees hold ERA hearings, and we had the first one in my committee in 40 years. And the opponents, what they say is that the timeline has expired. You have to go back and start all over again. Well, you know what that would be like. We'd all be dead. I mean, it's ridiculous. It took us so many years to get where we are now. And the other thing that they say is that women already have the protection of the 14th Amendment. But what we all know is that the Dobbs decision erased the privacy protection of the 14th Amendment, on which Roe v. Wade, the right to contraceptives, the gay marriage, and other rights are based. So we are in deep trouble. In case after case, the Supreme Court has held that laws aimed at leveling the playing field and giving equality to women were called invalid, or that Congress did not have the power to legislate in that area. An important part of the ERA is not only that it ends discrimination, but it gives Congress the power to enforce laws, to implement it, and enforce equality of treatment. For example, in 1994, Congress included the right to sue one's attacker in the very famous and important Violence Against Women Act. I worked with Vice President, then not Vice President, he was President of a committee, Senator Biden, on that bill. And we put in a right to sue. But if you remember the Brancala decision, when she tried to execute that right and to try to sue her attackers, who said, they confessed, yes, we did rape her. It was a gang rape, people saw it. So there was no question she was raped. But when she went to court, the Supreme Court dismissed her case, deeming the provision unconstitutional on a technicality. And the technicality was that the ability to put a private remedy in the law outside of the Congress's power under the Commerce Clause. In other words, women weren't in the Constitution, they're not protected. And well, I would say that rape is not a technicality, it is a crime. We should be able to enforce the right to sue when women are raped. I believe if we could get the ERA in the Constitution, it would do more to end violence against women than anything else, because they could take their case to court and win. Now, this interpretation that women aren't in the Constitution has some severe consequences. Let me ask you, were you raped at a state college? Too bad for you. The Supreme Court ruled that Congress has no right to pass a law granting the right to sue for damages. Outrageous. Men can sue for damages. Why can't we? Are you the victim of domestic violence? Tough luck. The Supreme Court ruled that you are not entitled to have a restraining order enforced. Outrageous. Are you the victim of pay discrimination? That's your problem. They say that they cannot enforce pay discrimination cases because the Constitution does not guarantee or end the discrimination against women. And it gets worse. Do you believe it can even get worse? The basis for most of these decisions is on an originalist view of the Constitution, which is 236 years old. I just want to share with you that Alito, who was quoted throughout the Dobbs decision, he based many of his writings on a jurist from the 1600s who had literally put two women to death and had them burned as witches. I'm not kidding. So if you go back to an originalist interpretation, that is putting us back to the days that we have worked so hard to change and to make different. I have to say that probably in my decision belief, the so-called Chevron decision is as bad as Dobbs. It is a horrible, horrible decision. And what it says, it will give the power to courts to overrule any policy implemented by a government agency as opposed to a law passed by Congress. Well, I would say that most of our rights that we have advanced has been a right that we say in a general sense, say, for example, in the harassment area, and it has been implemented by rules that are then interpreted by the courts as laws. But this decision reverses it, that these rules are not laws, and can be overturned by a judge. To show you how horrible this is, imagine that we could be in a position that Congress passes an abortion rights bill. And to put it in perspective, the entire time I was in Congress, 30 years, we never had the votes to pass Roe v. Wade. Only in the last year, when we had over 100 members of Congress and the Senate that were women, were we able to pass it. But assume that we passed an abortion rights bill, and President Biden signed it into law, or President signed it into law. The Supreme Court rules that Congress had no authority to pass such a statute since the Constitution does not prohibit sex or gender discrimination. And as we know, Scalia's statement that he really came out and said women aren't in the Constitution. If a discrimination case came to me, I would definitely rule against women because they're not protected. So if you pass the Equal Rights Amendment, you can enforce equal pay for equal work. You can enforce the right to sue. You can enforce the right to protect women from violence where they seek injunctions against their usually partners or husbands. But anyway, I was asked to share with you what I've been doing since I've left Congress. And so since Eleanor Roosevelt, she always said it was up to the women. So I am now working literally out of Eleanor Roosevelt's house. And it's the Eleanor Roosevelt Institute of Public Policy, and it gives me the freedom to do, guess what? Work on the Equal Rights Amendment. But even before I left Congress, when I lost my election, they redistricted me into an impossible seat. I wanted to work on it. And so I knew I was going to the ERA Coalition. It was a program that I helped start, and I was chairman of their board for a while. But I wanted to get the ERA moving. So I started a petition drive before I left Congress, got all the Democrats to sign a petition to Schumer, who was then the majority leader in the Senate, to have a hearing and a vote on the ERA. We were threatening to sleep out on the steps of the Capitol. It was freezing. I probably would have killed me if I did it. So I'm glad he said, you can't do it now, but I'll do it first thing in the next Congress. And he did. He kept his word. He had the first hearing in 60 years with Senator Durbin on the ERA. They held a vote. We got a majority of votes. Worked very closely with Bettina on all of these efforts that we did. And the Republicans invoked cloture, requiring 60 votes, so it was stalled. He kept the vote open to allow us to try to pass it in the House and come back to the Senate. We got every member of Congress on our bill, which was a sense of Congress that it was ratified and had to be recognized as in the Constitution, and took away the problematic time limit, which the Republicans claim killed it. But we say if Congress can add a time limit, Congress can take it away. And we passed legislation twice doing that in the House, but it didn't get through the Senate. So this bill, we got every Democrat, and we wanted to get 4 Republicans. That's all we needed. So we got a grant from NOW to go around the state to lobby. And we couldn't change those Republicans, but we did something very good. We changed 2 seats. We flipped them from Republican to Democratic, and that was a really great thing to do. And very importantly, if anybody has any water, I'd love a glass of water, maybe one. But one of the things that we did that was very important, my students started a nationwide petition drive for the ERA, and it's something that all of us can do. You can go to your phones right now and go to sign4era.org. They have gathered, with the help of the League of Women Voters, AAUW, NOW, the ERA Coalition, and many of your organizations here, over 120,000 signatures. But this is not a normal petition. This is a tool to force its passage, because we have computerized it and broken it down by election districts and by congressional districts and by states, so that we are able to activate everyone who signed and tell them to contact their elected official, what they're doing, what's before Congress, what they should be doing to help us try to move it. In this next year, I hope that this coalition can get 1 million people to sign this petition. We need to get the Republicans, and people listen to their voters, because if they don't, they're voted out of office. And their voters definitely support the Equal Rights Amendment. I was asked also to give some action ideas for things you could do to move forward. I would say first and foremost, sign the signforera.org petition. It will only take 3 minutes, and showing your support for the ERA is very critically important to document who is with us and who is not. Join and support a feminist organization. Join the League of Women Voters, AAUW if you're a professor. Now, join the UN coalition here and work with them worldwide. And write your member of Congress and tell them to support the Equal Rights Amendment. There is one thing that I want to say that I think we can do. In addition to, I think this proxy voting for pregnancy voting is going to pass. And I want to share one story. I was walking around the mall trying to think of how do I get Republicans? I could get every single Democrat. I couldn't get Republicans. So I thought I'll put in diplomacy, they have something called confidence building. You find something everyone agrees on, and then you trust each other, and you work together, and then you can get them to do things they don't really want to do. So I was walking around, I said, how can I get these Republicans? And I started noticing, where are the women? The women aren't on the mall. The mall speaks to the values of this great country. And that was my most famous quote in Congress was, where are the women? If they ever had a hearing on women's issues and we weren't on the panel, I would walk out and cause a stink that women should be on the panel. Even on reproductive rights, they told me once they couldn't find one woman who was qualified to speak to it. Can you imagine? So I'm looking at this and I'm like saying, where are the women? Where are the women? I walked all the way around. You know, they had everything. They had knitting, they had art, they had space, they had law and order. They're all men. And so I'm sitting there, where are the women on this mall? And then I got this idea. I'm going to put a bill in to put a National Smithsonian Women's Museum on the mall, and that everyone will support it. It's so easy. Well, I put the bill in, and all hell breaks out. They're opposed to it. Can you believe it? But meanwhile, I did a study of where women were. We're so underrepresented in statues, in history, and every single area. We are not represented in veterans. I passed the first bill that recognized a woman veteran in the history. You know, that women are, and I believe that if you don't recognize women and acknowledge them and know about their history, how in the world can we expect to be empowered? If we can't even get a museum talking about what we've accomplished. And so I worked on it a long time. Then you had to pass a bill to create a commission to see whether it's needed. We created this commission. They said it was needed. And I finally passed the bill several times with women on the mall. And then finally, the last year I was in Congress, I got it through. But in the Senate, they took out that it's on the mall. So, I mean, it's outrageous. We're half the population. Don't let them do this to us. So I got a friend of mine, since I'm no longer in Congress, to introduce a bill to put the women back on the mall. And I am going to do a sort of memo and maybe give it to your head to get out to you. I think all of us, it's a bill, should write that we support this bill and that we are that women should be on the mall, write your elected officials. I think we should all write the President of the United States and tell him that. Please help us. You said you're going to take care of women. Put us on the mall. Okay. I mean, try everything. Get everyone out there. I do want to share also that I had a great meeting earlier with Hakeem Jeffries. And I told him that all of my friends are very frustrated and they don't feel the Democrats are doing enough. And I know they are because I get all their press releases and they're out there. They're just not covering it. And he said one of the things they're doing is they're going to start a program called Tell Your Story. So that you tell the story, send it to them so they can go to the floor of Congress and talk about how these cutbacks are personally hurting you. They are asking you to join advocacy groups such as this. And they are asking you to go to the pop-up demonstrations that are happening. We are no longer doing big demonstrations because they come in and they bust them up and they control them. So we're doing pop-ups, so they don't know they're going to happen and they just happen. And there's one tomorrow, not tomorrow, Saturday at 11 o'clock at Foley Square if you want to come and protest some of the cuts and actions that are rolling back the rights that we have worked so hard on.
Can you repeat the time and the place?
It's at 11 o'clock and it's at Foley Square. That's right down by City Hall. And if we can get, we could figure out some way that we could communicate with each other. One way you can communicate is if you sign the petition, then we are able to let you know things that are happening where pop-ups are. So it's also a communications tool, and they're not going to give it to us. We're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get women into the Constitution. We're half the population. Enough is enough. It's been 101 years since Alice Paul introduced it. She was a relative of my late husband, Clifton Maloney. She was first cousin to his grandmother, believe it or not. So we've been working on this a long, long time. And all I can say is that failure is impossible. And I like to add that it is impossible until it's done. So let's not wait. One more year, not one more year. That's our battle cry from the ERA. Not one more year. Failure is impossible. Thank you for this honor to speak to you. I hope you sign the petition so we can keep in touch and put pressure on our elected officials to do what's right and to recognize women as equal.
Would you repeat the URL?
It is sign, S-I-G-N, 4, the number 4, E-R-A in capitals letters, ERA.org. And it's a full website on the battles for the Equal Rights Amendment, where we stand, the efforts, where we're going. I want to publicly thank the League of Women Voters. We have the head here, and she supported your whole effort. When we went around the state, the League of Women Voters were at every one of our stops. It makes a difference, as were ERA coalition members and others. So thank you.